You've probably been drinking coffee the same way for years. Same mug, same routine, same comfort. But at some point, many people notice something quietly changing. The coffee that once felt energizing now feels a little harsher. Maybe it upsets your stomach, affects your sleep, or just doesn't sit the way it used to. That doesn't mean coffee suddenly became bad, and it definitely doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. What's really happening is that your body changes with time, and the way it responds to everyday habits can change too. Today, we're going to look at coffee through a calmer, clearer lens, how age can influence tolerance, how preparation and ingredients matter more than most people realize, and how many health experts now think about coffee in context, not extremes. Before we go on, take a moment and think about this. Have you noticed coffee affecting you differently than it used to? If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Feel free to share your experience in the comments. And stay with me, because the part most people overlook has nothing to do with quitting coffee at all. You've probably had the same relationship with coffee for years. The same cup in the same spot, the same comforting routine that signals the start of your day. For many people, coffee isn't just a drink. It's a moment of calm, focus, or familiarity in a busy world. And yet, somewhere along the way, a quiet question starts to appear. Why does this feel different from what it used to? Maybe coffee once gave you steady energy, and now it feels a little sharper. Maybe it lingers longer than you expect, or seems to affect your sleep, digestion, or mood in ways it never did before. That experience can be confusing, even frustrating, but it's also very common, and it doesn't mean coffee has suddenly turned into a problem. What it often means is that your body, like all of us, has changed over time. As we age, the way the body processes everyday substances gradually shifts. Caffeine metabolism can slow down. Digestion may become more sensitive. Sleep cycles can become lighter and more easily disrupted. These changes aren't failures or signs that something is wrong. They're part of the normal aging process. And when a long-standing habit like coffee starts to feel different, it's often a signal to pay attention, not panic. What's interesting is that coffee itself hasn't changed nearly as much as the environment around it. Over the years, coffee has quietly transformed from a simple brewed drink into something that can be highly processed, heavily flavored, and loaded with extras most people never think twice about. Many cups of coffee today barely resemble the coffee people drank decades ago. Instead, they're closer to a dessert or an energy product, especially when instant mixes, flavored powders, and creamers enter the picture. This is where a lot of confusion begins. Someone might assume coffee itself is the issue, when in reality, it's what's been added to it. Ultra-processed ingredients have become a major topic in public health discussions, not because they're automatically dangerous, but because they can change how foods and drinks behave in the body. Artificial flavors, added sugars, and stabilizers can affect blood sugar response, digestion comfort, and energy levels, especially for people who are already more sensitive than they once were. For many older adults, this realization can feel empowering. It shifts the conversation away from giving something up entirely and toward understanding what's actually in the cup. A coffee that's simple and minimally processed often feels very different from one that's heavily altered for convenience or taste. Awareness alone can change how people experience their daily routine without rules or restrictions. Another part of the story that doesn't get enough attention is how coffee is prepared. Brewing style isn't just about flavor. It can influence acidity, strength, and how the body responds. Hot brewing methods tend to extract certain compounds differently than cold brewing. Filtered coffee isn't the same experience as unfiltered coffee. None of this makes one method right or wrong, but it does explain why two people can drink the same beans and feel very different afterward. For someone who notices stomach discomfort or jitteriness, a small change in brewing style can sometimes make coffee feel gentler, even though the coffee itself hasn't changed. This is why health experts often talk about context. Coffee doesn't exist in isolation. It interacts with digestion, hydration, sleep, and overall lifestyle. Looking at it as part of a bigger picture helps remove the fear and replace it with understanding. Decaf coffee adds another layer to this conversation. Many people assume decaf is one single thing, but in reality, it's a category with different production methods. Some decaffeination processes rely on water-based techniques. Others use different approaches that most consumers never hear about. This isn't meant to raise alarm, it's simply about transparency. Knowing that decaf isn't all the same helps people make choices that align with their comfort level and preferences. What matters most here is trust. Viewers want to feel informed, not frightened. When health discussions focus on clarity instead of extremes, people feel more confident navigating their own habits. Coffee doesn't need to be labeled as a hero or a villain. It's a tool, and like most tools, how it's used matters more than the tool itself. Timing is another factor that becomes increasingly important with age. Coffee later in the day may affect sleep quality more than it once did. A cup that feels harmless in the morning might feel disruptive in the afternoon. Sleep researchers often point out that caffeine sensitivity tends to increase over time, meaning the same amount can stay active in the body longer. This doesn't mean people need to eliminate coffee, it simply highlights the value of awareness. Digestion follows a similar pattern. The stomach and gut can become more reactive with age, especially when combined with stress or irregular eating habits. Coffee on an empty stomach may feel different than coffee enjoyed alongside food. Acidity, additives, and temperature all play a role in how comfortable that experience is. Again, these are observations, not instructions, ways of understanding why the body responds the way it does. What's reassuring is that many health professionals now frame coffee discussions in a much calmer, more balanced way than in the past. Instead of focusing on strict rules, they talk about listening to your body, staying hydrated, and noticing patterns over time. Coffee is seen as one piece of daily life, not a defining factor of health. This perspective matters because it removes guilt from the conversation. People don't need to feel anxious about enjoying something familiar. They just need space to notice how their habits fit into their current stage of life. For some, coffee remains a positive ritual. For others, small adjustments make all the difference. Both experiences are valid. It's also worth remembering that health isn't static. What works well at one point in life might need gentle adjustments later on. That's not failure, it's adaptation. Coffee becomes a great example of how small, thoughtful changes can support comfort and well-being without turning daily life into a list of restrictions. As public health discussions continue to evolve, one message comes through clearly: extremes rarely help, context does. When people understand why their body reacts the way it does, they feel more in control and less anxious. Coffee, when viewed through this lens, becomes a conversation about awareness, not alarm. If you're listening to this and thinking about your own routine, you're already doing something positive. Reflection is often the first step toward better long-term comfort and confidence. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need curiosity and patience with yourself. If this topic resonates with you, consider sharing your experience. Has coffee changed for you over the years, or does it still feel the same? Your perspective might help someone else feel less alone. And if you find these kinds of calm, balanced health conversations helpful, you can support the channel by liking the video and sharing it with someone who might appreciate a more thoughtful take on everyday health. As we continue exploring how familiar habits fit into long-term well-being, there's one area people are starting to talk about more openly, and it might surprise you how much it connects to the choices we make every single day.